comes to the internet, trust but verify.
I know. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, sunshines. I hope you are well. It's Friday, the 11th of September. No, it's not. It is the 11th of February. Where are we? What's happening? I'm super excited today because I am getting the pleasure to introduce you to a new gentleman in our community. He's been with us a couple of weeks. We met actually through his podcast. And so please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Kevin Stafford. Welcome to the Chasing Dreams and Making a Positive Impact community. I want to start off with saying and asking you the first question, which is, did you always imagine you would be an entrepreneur, or are you an accidental entrepreneur? How did you start your journey into where you are now?
Definitely an accident. In fact, perhaps as an act of self-sabotage, which we can psychoanalyze some other time, I deliberately never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I always thought of myself in a particular way as more of find a role to sink into, something like a very narrow, like silo, so to speak, and just be good at that and do that. Keep my head down-ish, but that has just, as I've developed more into myself, I definitely realized that I had a greater capacity for, this is going to sound like self-aggrandizement, but for engagement and empathy and leadership in some capacity. And stopping the voice in my head that was denying that and just letting it talk and seeing where it would tell me to go, where it would lead me, is, and continues to be a big part of my journey. And so I in fact, consciously told myself I wasn't any kind of entrepreneur or leader, possibly because I was afraid of the implications of what that might mean for what I would have to do. When you hear a thing that's true, you kind of have to act on it. And so, like, once you let yourself hear it, you're compelled to act accordingly, and that can be scary. So yeah, I think embracing that was a big.
I love that because I think it is so true. Like, entrepreneur is this word that you graduate to, I believe. And I think and I talk about this continuum. I talk about it a lot. I'm going to be talking about it on the Love Yourself Summit next week when I'm talking about how do you go from hobby bids to actually being a thriving entrepreneur, because it's a journey. You go from an employee to maybe contracting to maybe then thinking, well, I have a business. Don't know really how that happened, to maybe and maybe not becoming an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is a word that you grow into. And sometimes it's that, I agree, that thought of, those are the habits of someone else. I don't know if I'm that brave. Yeah. And that's sometimes we do sell ourselves short. We sometimes, avoid the truth that stares in the mirror that says we can actually do that. But I do find that most of the people I cross paths with are accidental entrepreneurs. And so they wake up one day going, I'm actually living this. This is really my life. So I'm sure there was a moment for you where that light bulb went, I think I'm owning this. I'd be curious to know what that moment was. And was it a big light bulb that went off, or was it a slow burn that suddenly went, someone else told me I was doing this, and I guess I really am. Tell me a little about it.
I think I haven't really thought about it quite this way before, but it's almost like it was a series of signal fires. And so it was multiple occasions, almost just like, a new day dawns and then the sun goes around and then a new day dawns. And so there were various checkpoints, more than checkpoints, turning points in my life as I realized something different foundationally about myself that has led me more towards entrepreneurship and leadership in business. The most recent signal fire that got lit on the top of the hill was I was, previous to my current position, my current roles, plural, I was working for UPS, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, United Parcel Service, pretty big shipping logistics company. And I started out there just kind of working in the sort of very blue collary, just kind of, working a certain shift, loading trailers and, tracking down lost packages, doing some problem solving, really liking my role. But it was very small. It was very compact. And I was content, but I was not satisfied. And I allowed myself to hear that. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do about that, both in my present role, and then what might that look like if I am elsewhere? And so what I decided to do was I finally got out of my own head about it and started looking for leadership opportunities within UPS. And also at the same time started looking outside of that role for other opportunities that might take me somewhere else, somewhere that I wasn't quite in a position to see yet, but that I could sense were out there somewhere, maybe over the horizon, maybe just around the corner. Turned out to be around the corner, but I'll get to that in a second. So within UPS, I just basically asked my direct supervisors that I had a good relationship with, hey, I'm looking to take more of a leadership role. What would that look like here? and they were over the moon. I guess they had been thinking about being in that capacity already for a while. As always, I was the last to the party.
That's okay.
That's okay though. That's very okay. I don't mind being fashionably late to self-discovery. But
never too late.
It's never
right
too
on
late.
time.
Yeah. So I started pursuing that and started moving very quickly through their management track. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I'm a little bit more than satisfied. But there's something not quite here for me. I don't know. We'll see. I'll continue to pursue that path while keeping my eyes on maybe a different horizon. And around that same time, a good friend of mine was beginning an agency endeavor and was in the really early stages and was like, I could really use someone like you as my partner. I could really use someone who has like basically he's proceeded to blow smoke up my butt and tell me things about me that he liked. And I was like, at first I was like demurred. I was like, I thank you for thinking that about me. But I'd let him speak to me. And then I let myself sit with that and think about it for a while. And it got to a point very quickly where even as I was continuing my acceleration through UPS, and that was going well, I was finding something even better. And that's something that I've always struggled with in my life a little bit, is to accept the good that's present while continuing to seek out that something better. And then when it presents itself, embrace the better, even if it's scary, especially if it's scary. And so deciding to actually put my money where my mouth was, so to speak, I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's start this agency. Let's pursue this track. Let's talk about what it's going to look like. And I'm going to do this at the same time. So basically what I did was I committed to a lot of work. I committed to continuing on this management track at UPS and committing myself fully to that and being engaged there, and just taking basically all the times that were previously spent, let's just say, on hobbies and leisure. It's not like I was a workaholic or anything like that. I still had time for my family. I still made time for my friends. But I was like, you know what? Let's tighten this up. Let's tighten up the ship. Let's, set the sails, whatever they need to be set. And let's just work at this and see what comes out of it. Let's just throw myself into it, be smart, keep my head up, move forward, and see what happens. And sure enough, very quickly, this agency opportunity, this partnership became something even more than I expected it to be in a very short amount of time. So within a matter of less than a year of this decision-making process, I was regretfully informing UPS that I was going to have to leave, because not only was the grass greener in this other place, but I was also engaged and passionate in a way that I'm not sure I ever have been by a career move. And I think the distinction there was I was going out and doing my own thing. I was going out and finding the thing that would be best for me to do, and then actively participating and making that happen. And it's,
so
obviously there are downs, there's work, there's sweat, there's stress, but honestly, a lot less than I thought. It's mostly just like I'm excited to go to work every day, which I understand that's such a corny thing to say, but I am. Like pretty much every day, I'm like, I'm glad to get into my office. I'm glad to check in with the people who I work with and for, and check in with the clients I work with and see how they're doing. Like I'm just happy to do it. And it's something both new and I feel like very old, because I feel like I've always had this capacity for passionate satisfaction within me. And it's just great to be discovering it a little bit every day and just being on the path. And now I should be quiet for a minute.
No, it's a fascinating thing, because I think, when we're often in dissonance, we talk a lot about plot twists here in the community. Many of you have heard my story, and it is about the moment that there's a dissatisfaction, but there's a quest for more. And what I love is when you give yourself permission to fall in love with possibility. And I talk a lot about dominoes. I'm running a new training course talking about the domino effect, because you don't yet know what you don't yet know, but you can grow into new capability. And you don't have to do that growth yourself. You had a great partnership. You had a friend who helped, open doors, and you guys collaborated to make what you're making happen together. Michael's also in our community, and someone's going to come and talk to us in a couple of weeks after he's had his baby. But, this is a good universal truth I think people need to hear. I was dissatisfied. I could see possibility. I knew I would have to grow for more. And when I started to believe I could, it can happen quickly. And sometimes, we get so caught in our head of we're thinking it needs to look like this. You don't know where the dominoes will fall. When I started my business journey, I could see it as a vehicle. It was never intended in me to be the end of something. It was like, I can learn something valuable here, and it would be a domino for me. And that really when I looked at, do I go or do I not go? It was like, there's only upside here. I can craft this. Like you, I was working and I was doing other things. And I said, I can commit a little bit of time, but I see the vision of possibility. I see potential. And I'm scared, but still brave enough to bet on myself, because I love the fact you say there's no bad days. And I when I know I'm in my business of my own business versus my corporate world, I keep saying, like, there are no bad days. There are tough moments, but not whole days, because nobody dies. You don't die of embarrassment. You never get better at something without doing it for the first 12 times or 100. And so you give yourself grace to say, well, that will never be as awful as it was in that moment. But I learned a whole heck of a lot I can't have gotten from a book, or if I'd simply watched on the sidelines, or if I simply let somebody else take control of it. If it's going to be, it's up to me. So I love that insight that you share in your own journey. So what's it like running a podcast show? What's it like, in that arena where you're meeting new people, you're crafting design, you're I can't think of the word now, but you're cultivating curiosity and building momentum. Tell me a little bit about what it's really like to be a podcast host, because podcast is very topical. Everyone thinks you need one. Do you? How do you make a good one? And what have you learned?
I don't know if everyone needs one in the sense that it needs to be a podcast in some sort of formal way, but everybody needs to be out there. Everybody needs to be connecting. Everybody needs to present themselves, to be available. And I feel like it is a signal that not only are you, on this podcast, on this video, on this whatever show, you're also, it communicates an availability of mind and availability of heart. And I think that is so important for what we're doing here in business, which in large part is just building relationships, especially as coaches. It goes without saying, but I think it still also should be said. Like, we are relationship builders. We are empathetic connectors, bridge builders, guides, Sherpas. And it's important to get yourself out there. And I think podcasts are a pretty easy way to have a high impact, and also to do all the work of meeting people and connecting, and also growing yourself. And to get specific to this podcast, and I've probably said this to you when we recorded ours, it really is the brightest spot of my day. Like, it is, I'm a little bit of I have often told myself that I am a bit of an introvert, and I have introverted attributes, to be sure. But one thing that I found out, but don't you find, like, as you go along, you're like, most of the dread, or most of the potentially negative aspects of it are in the past. It's like in the lead up. And then when I'm in the middle of it, it's connection, it's excitement, it's extemporaneous elaboration, it's genuine joy, it's passion. You see my hands starting to rise up. I do this in concert with my hands. It's the half Italian in me. But it really is. Joy really is what infuses it. It is such a joyful experience. And I'm always, even if I'm already at a pretty high place, like if I'm in a great mood and I've had a great day, I'll jump into a podcast and I'll have a conversation with a coach, and I'll come out of it and I'll just be one level higher every single time. And I would not have seen that prior to. In fact, I had a lot more, maybe not dread, but I was more like doubt that the podcast would be as impactful on me personally as it has proven to be. And also just impactful for our agency and impactful for the coaches I talked to. But I didn't really expect it to be as impactful for me. I freaking love it. I love it. And it's given me some much needed reps, because as you can probably tell, I can sometimes go on. I can elaborate, I get a little tangential, my hands start rising up and I'm like flying around the screen. But it has helped me to better access a proper articulation of my thoughts and feelings in the moment, with some forethought and some preparation, obviously, because you don't just go in Wild Wild West style, turn the camera on and just like fire off opinions. That's one thing I love about coaches is everyone's very thoughtful.
Crafting.
Yeah, and good at crafting and communicating those thoughts and their feelings in a way that is accessible. So it's really just, you couldn't go into a lab and build a better podcast guest than a coach.
That's interesting.
The ideal one, it basically comes out as a coach, because thoughtful, articulate, have said many of the same things before, but always finds a way to say it in a way that connects with the individual they're speaking to. Again, Bridge Builders Guides. It's basically I can just turn the camera on, say hi, how's it going, and just let the joy rising up within me just show on my face, and then just all I have to do is just sit there and just let the people I talk to be themselves. Yeah, it really
and
is.
anybody else is way too hard.
Right? Yeah. Everybody else take.
Yeah, I love when you say the great thing about podcasts is you do always need to be building your audience. This is something that we've been talking about pretty topically here in the community for the last couple of weeks after there was a bit of a lightning rod. We were talking about how hard it is to get clients. And I'm like, is it? And I don't mean that cavalierly. I don't mean that grandiose either. It's essential to your business to bring in new partnerships, new ways to contribute, and getting in front of new people is critical. You cannot subscribe to this Kevin Costner's Field of Dreams business as a strategy model and really see it viable, because you have to recognize you can't just build it and they will come. You need to have value, contribute, continuity in your messaging, and podcasts can be a great vehicle to do this. But I want to use your resource as the other side of the table, as the host, to say, what makes a good podcast guest? What questions should they ask the podcast host to say, how do I give value to you? Because I think sometimes what I hear out in networking meetings, people are like, I'm looking for platforms to speak. And my brain goes as the coach, what's in it for the audience? What's in it for the host? What's in it for the community they're cultivating? But I had that own thought to myself on it. I would love for you to say, and to guide our community here, what makes you a good guest and how should you interact well with a host? How do you help them?
I think there's a couple things I think of off the top of my head. First of all, as I think both a guest and a host come into it prepared and open. Not but open, but prepared but open, because obviously you want to make sure that you speak to the things that you want to speak to and represent the things you want to represent, but also that you are open to going where the conversation takes you. Not only, and over and above the content of what you're sharing, that kind of connection, that kind of vibe. And you see it time and again when you hear a guest and a host really getting each other and kind of going where the conversation takes them, even if it's relatively short, it pulls you in and you're listening even more closely. And you don't just want to plop stuff out there and be like, here you go, audience, like it or not, connect with it or not. You want to do a little bit of the work for them. You want to be engaging and also on message. You want to kind of go where the conversation takes you, but also don't leave anything out that's important, like where they can find you if they want to know more about you. It's certain basic stuff. So a good combination of preparation and openness to go where the conversation takes you, I think, is important for both. As a guest, actually, also both. Honestly, a lot of the same attributes apply to both the guest and the host. And I really like that you positioned adding value as a key attribute, because really, if you want to listen to two people just talk about themselves, there's plenty of options for that. But you have to have and I think this is where specificity really comes into play. Not just coming into a podcast with a particular thing that you want to share or a note you want to make sure that you hit, but also the podcast itself having a very specific purpose, because then people will go to it knowing what to expect. Like ours, the Coffee with Coaches podcast is it's pretty much what it says it is. It's a short, the coffee part is where you get the short. It's like a short chat about a coach's journey from their superhero origin story to what they're doing now and to what's coming up in the not too distant future. It's meant to be very consumable, very bite-sized, so that hey, if you don't have that hour-long commute anymore because you're working from home, but it takes you 10 minutes to wash the dishes, you pop a little podcast on, you can work it into your day really easily. And a lot of people, I feel like, with the raising consciousness of coaching in general, I think there's increasing curiosity along with that as to what kinds of coaching there are out there, both for coaches, both for people looking to maybe move into coaching or have maybe just gotten their start and don't really know what else is going on out there, or people who are just everybody's talking about coaching. Half the people I know have a coach of some capacity, whether it's executive or life or relationship or whatever. I want to know more about that. But I also don't want to spend 2.5 hours listening to, the Tim Ferrisses of the world go really deep with, somebody like that. Although maybe you do, I do, but that's not everybody.
It's not your maybe first place you start. If you are growing, yes, different value.
So specific and accessible and focused on a particular goal to serve a particular audience what they might be looking for, and just to make sure that it's all up front. And I feel like if you have those things in mind, your podcast is going to be good. And then it's just a matter of making sure it's in all the places that it needs to be. Because like you were saying, this whole, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they have to know it's there. Otherwise...
I say you can't sell to people always, this is my rant of the week in a nice, kind, gentle way was, if you only know 100 people and you expect to have 1,000 sales a month, you have a problem. You need to build your audience. And the one thing I was actually I told you, before we hopped in here, I was with my business coach and saying, how do I make sure I'm maximizing the after effect of a speaking opportunity? Because we're getting to release some podcasts that you and I had done. There's some work that we've done with Michael. I said, I want to make sure not only do I graciously give during my sessions that adds value to their community, because the biggest compliment, I will tell you guys, in my opinion, of being a good guest is being invited back. That means you're adding value to their community. You had a good relationship, you had a good connection, and you want to support their activity going forward. Give more than you take. So do that, please. Please give to your podcast host, give to the support, write reviews, be kind, not just to your own episode. Don't do that. Please don't be that person who leaves the shopping cart in the parking lot. Do not only your own bit, but go and give time to someone else. You might discover something great. You might discover someone else and then you go, hey, would you introduce me? I love what they had to say. Maybe we could do something together, but give more than you can take. Support the podcast beyond just that thing and be a good guest. So I want to give you one opportunity to go with two things, but I'm going to say, what's one thing you learned you wish you knew earlier in your journey to becoming a business owner, launching a podcast? What's the one thing you went, that was painful, I could have learned that earlier? I'm curious.
Let's see. First of all, real quick, I love that. I love that shopping cart in the parking lot thing. That is one of my like human character tests where it's like, and I hadn't even really thought about it for a while, but then somebody presented it to me and I was like, oh yeah, that does really tell you a lot about people. And then I thought about how my behavior is. And I'm one of those schmucks who will go around and like, if there are carts close to the cart return, I will grab them along with mine and just shove them in there. Because
you're a good human. That's why we like you.
But let's see. One thing I wished I had known, the first thing that comes to mind, so I'll go with that and I'll see if anything else shakes out while I'm talking. I really wished I had known that I would both enjoy and be pretty decent at, and I say decent because I don't want to say I'm good at it yet, but I think I'm pretty good at being a podcast host. I wish I had not let my own internal monologue drown out the fact that this not only could be good and fun and enriching and exciting. I wish I had turned the volume down on that voice earlier and just let myself try and, fail forward a little bit, like make some mistakes and, mispronounce somebody's name 3 different times in the same podcast and just have to be, ashamed that I didn't, read the pronunciation or just didn't take some time, just let myself feel that and make those quote unquote mistakes that I actually they're the greatest teacher that you can access on such a regular basis is those little tiny failures, even the big ones. They're just strewn all throughout your life. Stop being afraid of those and just put myself out there, engage with it, put it together, figure out what works, what doesn't, find the people to connect with, maybe people who aren't a great fit, understand that you can then pass them on to other people. It's a part of this ecosystem, this rising tide. And just, getting out of my own way. I wish I had done it sooner. I really wish I had done it.
That's so relatable. Everybody here in this community will relate to this. And it's the first thing you find on my YouTube channel is a short clip that says, get out of your own way. And it's true because, I think fear is a natural thing. Fear of the unknown, fear if we've never done something. Our biggest instinct is to, what if it goes poorly? Mm-hmm. And it can hold us back in so many ways. I talk about it as leaving a back door open. And if you leave quitting on the table, guess what? You'll quit. But I love the fact that you could say, I never imagined how amazing it could be. And it's not to say that it was effortless. There's flow to the journey. There's the constant belief in self of I can grow and I learn and I build on the brick by brick. Nothing happens amazing in your transformation journey without a lot of dominoes falling. And I go back to that domino analogy a lot. So I love that you've talked about that because it is, when you go back, and if you are contemplating whether it is being on a podcast, launching a podcast, being in business, taking your business from hobby to thriving, or simply towing into a part-time entrepreneurship like you and I both did, Kevin, is started as a side hustle, you can. You can be amazing. You don't have to do the journey by yourself. You do not actually have to have all the answers because you don't know what you don't know yet. And you can acquire the skills you need to be successful at it and grow along the way. So as we wrap up our time here today, I want to say what you got going on next. If you want people to come and discover the podcast, please give it a plug. But what can we do to support you on your journey? Not just your business, but you. How do we support you? And what can the community give for you?
Let's see. Well, yeah, the podcast is Coffee with Coaches. You can find it boxer.agency/coffee with coaches. I think there's hyphens in there, so it's coffee-with-coaches, whatever. It's not the best URL, but yeah, you can find us on, the various podcast syndicated platforms or whatever. But I love it so much. I almost feel greedy, but it's like, if anybody wants to be on with me, I would love to have you. Talk about your
guys, he's just offered you to, if you're a coach in this community, and I know several of them, so I might go even tag you to come watch this. He's just given you a beautiful gift.
And it's so much fun. And I promise I will do my darndest to make it as fun for you as it is for me. And I'm going to set a high bar because I know I'm going to have a lot of fun. So,
I love that.
And for me personally, I think just the continued encouragement of being in the community. And by that, I mean just people sharing their story, sharing their wins, sharing what might have seemed like a loss at first, but that they have then mined for valuable material. Like we talk about how those failures are our greatest teachers and how we just need to not be afraid to go out there and make them, learn from them, and grow forward together. Just being in the community and exposed to that, it's so beneficial because it has this benefit of encouraging me, even if nobody knows I'm in a moment where I need encouragement. Because, obviously, it's sometimes I'm connecting with people all the time, but, a lot of times you're working on your own, you're taking care of details, you're in the privacy of your own mind and heart. And sometimes you get those low moments and you never know what something that maybe you posted an hour ago, a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, somebody like me, I'll come across it and be like, oh, that's a great story. That's like exactly what I've been struggling with. Or I just was wrestling with that just yesterday and I found my way through it, but I love how this person found their way through it in a different way. And it kind of deepens my understanding of that whole journey. And it's just, you never know when something that you put out into the world will find someone at the perfect time, just when they need it. And that's what I love about being in communities like this, is that my choice to be a member of this community is exposing myself to the opportunity to be encouraged and to be lifted up by just you posting your stories or talking about a win or just sharing a little tiny bit of yourself. So maybe that sounds corny, but that's it. That's what
we're here for. And I'm here to deliver that. We are here to deliver that because, I always say to people, I'm in chapter 10 in my business journey. I'm a business owner just like you. I am maybe several chapters ahead, but we all still struggle with the same things. Let's take them out of the silence. And yes, if you need something, ask for it. If you feel connected by somebody else's journey, share that. The biggest thing that we can do is lean on each other. There's no glory in the lone wolf. You can have your own vision. Nobody will carry it for you, but you do not have to bear the burden by yourself. And it doesn't have to be burdenful. You can find joy, get the growth, have some giggles, because I will tell you, the outtakes in life are what makes your story amazing. The story you're scared to tell is the story the world needs to hear. And that's how you'll be successful in business. So we really appreciate you, Kevin, here coming to spend some time on the Chasing Dreams, Making a Positive Impact community. Thank you for being brave enough to say, oh my God, really? Yes, I'm in. Thank you for doing that. I graciously appreciate it. Please reach out. Kevin, you can drop your contact details. You can obviously find him in our community. And if you're looking to maybe collaborate with Kevin, he's a great guy. We had lots of fun in our conversation. And the Coffee for Coaches podcast. Good thing I'm not on radio. It's lots of fun. So definitely take him up on that opportunity. Thank you for being here. Look forward to our next conversation. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you soon. Take care.